Let's say that you have come up with a sketch, a thumbnail sketch, and it looks great and you really love how the perspective is looking in the sketch. But when you try to translate that to your actual drawing, start to create a grid, it doesn't turn out quite the same way. Well, this video is designed to show you how you can take that sketch, bring it into Adobe Illustrator, or you can do this by hand as well, and then create a grid using your sketch as a guideline. So let's go through the steps. First of all, I have my sketch right here. And the first thing I want to do is notice where I have placed both my horizon line and as well as my center of vision. Of course, the center of vision is always going to be right in the middle of the page. Horizon line is going to be kind of where I have approximated it in my sketch. So we'll go ahead and drop guides down for that. I'm also going to create a handy little tool right here that will help me find my left and right vanishing point as it relates to standing position. So I can just move it up and down my center of vision, rock it back and forth, and I should be able to find standing position as a result of that. And that center diagonal that comes up through it also gives me my diagonal measuring point. I'll go ahead and put stars on my left, right, and diagonal measuring points, just so I know where they are as I start to construct my grid. Next thing I need to do is establish what the height is. So I look at my sketch. So you can see that my horizon line comes to about half of the door frame. My standard door frame is 7 feet. That means my horizon line is going to be about 3.5 feet. So I'm going to go ahead and use my door frame as an anchor for establishing everything else in my perspective grid. So we know that my door frame is going to be 7 feet tall. So I'm going to create a line, a vertical axis that goes up to 7 feet. I'm going to divide that vertical axis by 7 increments. And this is really easy to do in Adobe Illustrator. I simply step and repeat, make marks all the way up, 7 of them, till I get to the top. Extend this vertical axis all the way down to the front of my page. And the front of my page is going to be where I'm going to start my grid. And it's going to be along this point right here. We're going to call this our 0 point that we're going to establish our horizontal baseline. And it's this horizontal baseline that we are going to make measurements on. Now I have to make sure that these measurements correspond to the measurements of the door that I've already configured. So I'm going to draw a line all the way across to a vertical axis that's in alignment with my horizontal baseline. And that will help me establish what 1 unit should be now in this forefront perspective. And then I can just simply duplicate this across the horizontal axis to find my equal measurements going to the right. Do the same for my equal measurements going to the left. This is 1 unit as it relates to 1 unit on the door. Now what we're going to do is we're going to find our measuring points. And we do that by drawing a line that goes from standing position to right vanishing point. And the distance of that line will give us the right measuring point along the horizon line. So go ahead and put that in there, right measuring point. And then we'll do the same thing going the other direction. In essence, what we're going to be doing is we're going to take this horizontal baseline that has measurements on it, and we're going to find out what those measurements actually look like in perspective as they go along the lines that are connected to the 0 point. Once I have found my measuring points, I can take lines and draw them all the way down to the baseline that I have created. Now, I'm just looking for where these lines intersect the line that's going off into the distance. And where it does, that's where I need to make a mark, is where I need to make a point. And I'll do that going all the way up. Once I have done that, then I can simply delete those lines because I no longer need them. They're not part of the grid. I just need them for finding the measurement, the corresponding measurement of the baseline against the line that's moving into perspective. I can do that both on the right and on the left. And when I have finished, I can complete the grid by connecting to the diagonal measuring point. now I have a pretty strong grid, and I also have the vertical relationship of that grid. So now at this point, I'm just going to rely on some of the details on my sketch, use some proper measurements for door frames and stuff like that, and start to build out and craft out the drawing that I have created. Last thing I want to show you is how to create that graded ceiling that I wish to create. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to extend some lines up from the floor, and I'm going to draw them across the ceiling back to the vanishing point. And I'm going to make them pretty much the same distance as these frame supports on the doorway. And I'm going to first find the outer square, and I'm going to then find the inner square. So you can see I've used the diagonal measuring point in order to find the outer square. And I'll go ahead and extend that all the way up. And now in order to find the inner square, what I have to do is subdivide this space right here. Then find the crisscross of this smallest square right here by simply going once again across the diagonal. Connect that back to the vanishing point, and that should help me find the halfway point, which then will allow me to find the halfway point using the diagonal measuring point in the center, and then that helps me break this larger square up into 4 squares. Once I do that, I just continue to use diagonal measuring points both for the small squares and for the large squares, and then I continue to draw out the rest of this gridded ceiling to the right and to the left of my room. So that's about it. I will continue to keep working on this and building it out and using my grid to figure out what all the different parts and pieces should be, using my grid as a measurement so I understand what those proportions are as I move away from me in space. But this is kind of the main structure of how to get started. And you can see that the grid that I have created is very similar to the sketch that I created. Therefore, I can realize the vision of my sketch as I move into my final drawing. That's about it. Thank you for watching.